Hi, and welcome to the Personal Side of Business, where every business has a story. I'm your host, Jet Bunawang, and today my guest is Andrea Arroyo. She's a financial professional who helps individuals and businesses build financial security and growth. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Jet.
So tell us, how did we get here?
Whew, man. I'm pretty young, but I feel like I've lived like many lifetimes and done a lot of things in my life. Um, but a little background on me, I was in the nonprofit world for a really long time, managing different programs, community building, partnerships, providing resources for the community. From different groups within the community, I helped a lot of low income families, provided a lot of resources for them. And throughout my career, I started noticing that there was a gap in help for a lot of middle class. And specifically when it came to financial education, well, I think just in general, our financial education system here in the United States isn't very tailored to a lot of us. Specifically myself, in my case, I'm a first generation, and I don't come from a family with a lot of financial literacy. Everything that I've learned that I know is from my own research, from my own education, asking questions, looking up things, not because I learned it from somebody in college, in high school, not from a family member. All I ever heard from family was put your money in the bank, save, but they don't tell me how much, when should I be saving. That was one thing that my grandma always just said, you need to save. But nobody really taught us what that meant or when should I start saving. So little things like that I started noticing. So I started my personal financial journey, wanting to, reduce my debt. How can I afford a house? How can I buy a better car? Like, how can I feel more stable and not so anxious every time I have to open up my bank account? So it started my personal financial journey and doing the research, going through my own relationship with money, figuring out my patterns, healing that money relationship and really dissecting the root cause of what money was doing to me. And from there, it just opened up the door of all the other possibilities and knowing, there's other ways to manage my money and not just the way that my grandma was telling me how to do it. Fast forward, here I am now. I help families like myself, other professionals, businesses, helping them just have a better relationship with their money so that they can have structures in place so that they can grow and protect their money.
Yeah, to your point of something you mentioned that we don't really get taught growing up how to put money away or strategy rather, right? I think a lot of us, especially from middle to lower income families, get told, put money into a savings account. There's no strategy, and it's probably not the best use of the money overall, right? There's probably better ways to make a compound interest in other areas. And then I think we're told you want to get the house, you want to get the car. And then now debt comes into play and then credit cards, and we don't really know what to do. And we get into bad debt. When you're teaching these middle to lower income families how to save and deal with debt, what's one of the first strategies that you put in place?
So I always like to ask them to kind of see where they're at and kind of what their goals are because everybody has different goals. For me, it was I wanted to buy a car, I wanted to buy a house. For somebody else's, I just want to have enough savings in case my car breaks down. So I always ask the question, imagine yourself going out to your mailbox, open up your mail, you open up an envelope with your name on it. There's a $50,000 check to your name, tax-free. What are you going to do with that money? What's the first thing that comes to mind? And then from there, they start telling me what they want to do. I'm going to pay off my student loans, my credit card debt, or I'm going to put it in investments. I'm going to go buy Bitcoin or whatever it is, that whatever it is that they want to do. And so it helps me understand where they're at.
Ah, nice.
And then from there, I could say, okay, so you like this. You want to travel. Okay, you want to start up a business. All right, now I know what you want to do, what your aspirations are. And it helps people like imagine too, because sometimes we are so stuck not knowing where to go, or we don't even have a vision. We just know, or we feel like we should be doing something. And we feel that money is what's stopping us from actually creating a vision for ourselves. So that helps me kind of gauge where they're at. And then from there, then I start asking the questions of, okay, how much are you bringing in? What are your spending habits? And kind of do like a financial analysis of where they're at and what strategies, what are the priorities before we can get there, and kind of setting up a map for them to get there. Because that's how it was for me. When I sat down with the financial professional, I said, this is where I want to be. And then we took it back and said, okay, this is where you're at. And it took me a couple years to be able to get to where I'm at, but at least I was able to build a solid foundation to get to where I want to be. And now where I'm at, I feel a lot more stable. Obviously, now I want to keep growing. But that's how I kind of take it with my clients as well.
That's great. And, I think there's this stress that comes with someone's current financial situation and the path that you want to take them on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And do most people that you work with start to complain or have an issue like, there's no way I can get there? Like, if I'm literally going from day to day right now to try to make ends meet, and you're telling me I want to save money, we want to do this for the future. I don't want to look past a month. I just want to pay my rent and keep things going. What do you say to someone that's speaking back to you like that?
Yeah, I do get some clients that are very like, there's no way I can get there, right? Like, yeah, I live paycheck to paycheck. And so then I say, okay, let's look at where your money's going. And so I give them homework and I say, pull your spending bank statements. I think most banks now have like a spending budget. You can see where you're spending your money. And I say, track your money for 1 month. And I check in with them like halfway through the month, and I say, show me where your money's going. And now it's painting a bigger picture of them of like, oh yeah, I paid Hulu and I haven't even opened up the app in months, So sometimes it's really little things like that where people are like, I just don't want to do it, and they don't want to do the work. Because it's hard. And then that tells me another pattern of where they're at. Oh, they're avoiding even opening up their bank account. So then I try to dig a little bit deeper and try to find the pattern that where is the anxiety coming from? What is it that they feel? And how can I help them to overcome that challenge? Because I can only help people and kind of guide them. At the end of the day, they're the ones that need to make the choice of, okay, I really do want to get there. And she's telling me what I should do or what I can do to try to get there. So I really try to be very patient with them and give them the tools that they need to be able to get there, and offer suggestions of, okay, you really are living paycheck to paycheck. How can we bring in more money? How can we increase our income? Because right now we're very limited with our income. So then we start brainstorming on ideas of what they can potentially do to increase that income.
Yeah. And let's dive in a little bit more to the emotional and psychological aspects of how someone deals with money, right? Because I always think of my own situation, back when, especially when I was younger in my 20s, I didn't have money and I was hesitant and afraid the way, what you're talking about, to look at my bank account, which now looking at it where I have more money, I'm looking at it and I was like, I should have been more uptight about how often I'm looking at it, and then try to track everything. But now this is where, when you start to have money, you're like, well, whatever, whatever. It doesn't really hurt me. But the same thing happens is there was I don't name the company, but there was a company that was running my credit report multiple times a month. And I happened to see it last month, and I called my bank and I was like, how often is this happening? They're like, it's about 4 times a month. And I was like, oh, so just the past couple of months? She's like, no, this goes back to January. So and then luckily my bank was good enough to give me all the money back. But I was like, why am I not paying more attention to that, right? That's literally, it was, I think, $100 and something a month that was going out. So let's dive into the emotional, psychological aspect of when someone is, counting should be counting their pennies, why they're not looking at their bank account and then their finances all the time.
I think when they're not looking at it, it comes from I'm scared. I don't want to see how much money's actually left over if I'm overdraft, if my negative. Um, because I was there too at one point. You know, I was like, oh my gosh, I think they just charged
Yeah.
everything, and I might have a $35 fee on there now, right? And if I don't look at it, I don't look at it. But then you find I also was in the same situation where I was getting charged for something. I look back and I said, I don't know what that is. You know, it's $200 that put me in overdraft for something that I didn't purchase. Um, so we're scared to look at what is left over, I think, from our money. We're scared to see where we're spending. Oh, I forgot I went shopping because I was feeling heartbroken,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so now you have that shame, that guilt of I did something because I was trying to make myself feel better, and now I don't want to like look at the consequences of it. So I think that's the psychological part of it, and sometimes we don't realize it until later when we're older, where you're like, okay, I have a little bit more money, right? Let me not so much worry about it because I know there's money in there. But then we start building even more habits of, oh, I can go shopping now, and I don't need to worry about it because there's more
Yeah.
money in the bank. And so and that still means we don't have the best relationship with money, you know, and it's just like having a relationship with a family member, with a friend. How much time are you spending on it? You know, do you text your friend every day? Do you give them a call once a month? You know, how often are you talking? That's how we should be treating our money as well. Personally, that's how I think it should be.
You know what's really helped me, to your point, are apps now, like AI apps that will notify me, one, if I've repeatedly spent on something that it's like a duplicate charge, you know, and two, it will let me know if large amounts of money have gone out or come in, which seems like a really minuscule thing, but in the big picture, from month to month, it's made me refocus it. If I'm getting a text or something every couple of days, just let me know what's going on, you know. And I think that's one of the most important things that, thinking about now, having more money than I did, especially in my 20s. I can think about those habits. I'm like, I should have done this back then. So I try to do them now, which is, I felt like has helped me keep more money over time. Like, why am I spending on that? And, you know, there was a point, and maybe you can talk about this. One of the things that someone had said to me was one of the biggest financial downfalls of the United States of America is auto debt, right? We go buy cars. People spend $1,200 a month on a car they most likely can't afford. They're still living at home. And like, why are you getting an Audi for when you're living in an apartment with your parents? You should be helping them, or you should be trying to put that money away to do something else. Do you see a lot of that sort of frivolous spending in younger generations? Gen X or millennials.
Millennials too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I do see that, and it goes. And when I asked them, I said, "So why are you driving this 2025 truck when gasoline is up the roof, but you're still living at home, but you're trying to save for a house?"
Yeah.
And so I'm like, "Help me paint the picture here." And there's definitely, and I think it's because we want to appear. It's the appearance. When I talk about Latino families, we talk a lot about like the appearance of, in Spanish we say ¿qué va a decir la gente? And it's always like, what are people going to say? Oh, well, they have a good job, so they should be driving a nice car, you know? And I should be showing the world that I've made it, even though on the back end of things we're not making it. And I think it's just pressure from society, and people follow people. If they see, oh, they got a new car and we work the same job, you know, we're colleagues, I should go get a new car too. Yeah. Even though my bank account is nothing what theirs looks like, right? So I think that's where a lot of people fall into a lot also, is the society expectations of what have been expected. Oh, go to school, get a good job, you're in your career, and you made it. You buy the house and the car. But that's not the reality nowadays. Nowadays, we need to go back, start looking at our money habits. Where are we at? What are we doing? How am I actually going to get there? And having the discipline too. There comes a lot, I think, with discipline, because you say you want to get there, but are you actually consistently making habits of not going to Starbucks? Like Starbucks for me was one of the hardest things to let go of. And it's been about 3 years now that I have not gone into a Starbucks. Wow. I deleted the app. I removed my card from it, and it took me a while. Like I'd be like, oh, let me re-download the app, and then I would re-download it. And then people at work, oh, we're going on a Starbucks run, and then I'd be like, I want to come too. And so
you're like a familiar bar, and like you're like, I used to have such a good time at Starbucks.
Yeah, and then realizing what was Starbucks doing for me. And for me, it was just painting I'm going to Starbucks and I'm getting my venti coffee. That's really what it was. And then I started making my coffee at home, and now I love my coffee at home. But it was me realizing and realizing through the moment of, I'm about to download the app again, and then realize I don't need it, and now it's completely off. And I know it sounds really small and probably not to a lot of people, but to me, that was a big turning point for me when it came to letting go of Starbucks and deleting my app.
Yeah, because we're not dealing with, this is not like 1960 where it was just money coming in and money going out, spending on whatever you need to spend. I think now we're being influenced by social media, our friends who, it seems like people, like to your point, people younger and younger are getting nicer cars and then being flashier, and then jewelry that we're not sure if it's fake or not. People are just wearing them just to show off. And it's becoming this, a society of, can we keep up with what we're looking at on all these different levels and platforms? What's the rule? I guess let's start with someone who's like in their 20s, right? What's your advice for someone in 20s? And we're kind of work our way up to 30s. If we were to be in a normal situation, we're just a job. Let's put it at what do we want to give it? Like, let's say 20s, we're making 55K. Does that seem low?
In your mid 20s?
Yeah. We're 25 years old. We're just coming out of college, and we're first job, happy about it. What's if you can start fresh with someone, what would be your advice for them in their 20s?
Somebody in their 20s that's just probably about to graduate college or just graduated and got their first big boy, big girl job, I would definitely tell them or ask them, what is your financial plan? Like, what do you have already in place? Do you have a savings account? What kind of savings account do you have? How much in retirement are you willing to put down each month from your paycheck? What tools are you using for retirement? Are you sticking to just one of them? And just introducing them to the different ways that they can be saving money, that they can be budgeting their money. Because at the end, my goal is for everybody to have a diversified portfolio, to be able to have just more of a stability in your financial life. So that would be my recommendation, my suggestion to a young person. Start looking at the things that you don't really want to look at, because when we're young, we want the money right now. I want to go shopping. I want to go on the vacation. I want to go to happy hours. You finally have money. You want to do all the things that you've been wanting to do, but that's where the discipline comes in. You can do all those things, but there's a smart way of doing it. And you also have to think about your future. One day you want to have a family. What are you doing right now to build a foundation for your family? Because if you Google, how much does it take to raise a child in the United States, and that's not including, tuition. It's almost, I think last time I checked, I think Google said it was like $380,000 to raise a child, from birth to 18. Wow. That's how expensive it is. So telling people that's how much money it's going to take for you to raise a kid. You're responsible for a child from age 1 to 18. That's how much money you're going to be spending. What are you doing to be able to have money in that bucket for your family? How much money are you putting in the bucket for expenses? How much money are you putting in your travel bucket, in your retirement? So just really painting that picture, because when I had my first big girl job, I sat down with my HR person and they said, oh, put money in your 401k. And then that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. I'm like, okay, so I'm just throwing whatever. I don't even know how much I was putting at the time, because they didn't even know how much I should be putting. They're like,
Yeah.
well, how much do you want to save? Well, I don't want to save anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's what I would recommend. And I hope that, more employers, educational systems can start putting these places, like these things into place to really help our future generations, like our younger ones, to avoid a lot of what we're doing. We're kind of doing the reverse engineering. We're going backwards, right? To kind of fix our patterns, put things into place. So that's what I would tell somebody in their 20s. And there are some 20-year-old, like mid 20-year-olds that I've met with that I'm actually really impressed.
Yeah.
They've reached out to me, and and I'm impressed with where they're at. And I'm like, where are you finding all this information? They're like, oh, I'm going on YouTube or, on TikTok and things like that. They're like, I wanted to talk to somebody in real person.
And that's the other point I wanted to make. And then you do, because I've met those kids too that are saying kids now. I feel like in the 20s, but I've met those young persons too that are getting influenced by the good side of social media, coming in and like, I've been listening and following this person. They've been giving advice to do this, and at least they're like reaching out and trying to learn, because people will be like, I want to understand if I invest into real estate or into life insurance policy, or put it away for this compound interest somewhere. Where can I find that? Now that we have that person in their 20s has done well. Now they're in their 30s. Does that person in their 30s, what will change now to that person that is coming out in their 20s and saying, well, I've done what you've told me. What's the adjustment now as I'm getting older?
So as they're getting older, is families grow, right? At this point, your family's probably growing. Now you have the kids. Now you have the house expenses, or you're planning to put a down payment down. So you want to start investing, maybe, in a business at this point. You start evolving, you start growing. So as you start growing, more expenses come with that as well. So being able to also like kind of reassess, where are your goals now as your adult goals, right? Your family goals. Some parents, want to put their kids in private education. Some parents want to homeschool. How much is that going to cost you? Some parents want to start up a business, and have their kids also play travel ball. So kind of seeing where they're at, and it goes back to, okay, what were you doing in your 20s? Can we do that now? And if we didn't do that, okay, where can we move things around? Where can we sacrifice something? Something's got to go. What other resources are available out there that can help you? How much debt do we have? Can we, and then sitting down and looking at the pros and cons of like, okay, real estate, life insurance, what are your goals? What are your values too? What is it that you're trying to build wealth for? Is it to pass down to your kids, or do you want to give it to an organization? Things like that.
Yeah, because my guess is now you're getting into your 30s, and you could be a single individual, or you can be coupled with a spouse, and then you're trying to figure that aspect out. Now, what are some percentages that you would suggest someone put away for X this, or they should be spending on, let's say, car payment, mortgage, or rent, and then for other expenses that are necessary items for life?
So I always tell people, you have your paycheck, and the first two things that you need to worry about is putting down 5-10% into your savings, because that is going to go into your emergency fund, because emergencies happen all the time. Cars break down all the time. An accident in the house happens. A life crisis happens. What do you have in your savings? Because they're emergencies, and emergencies happen all the time. So having that emergency fund there, and how much should be in your emergency fund? A good place to start would be 3 to 6 months of covering all of your expenses, which includes your mortgage, all of your insurances, car payments, everything that you pay for in a month, including maybe even like going out to eat. Like include that in your budget so that you're not feeling like you're tied up and you're like it's the end of the world. Include that in your savings and start building towards that. It takes time, but having that emergency fund 3 to 6 months covering all of your expenses is one thing to have. And then the other part for some families or individuals, they like to tithe or give back to an organization. And I say, okay, that's a non-negotiable as well. We put that in there. What is another non-negotiable? Rent and mortgage, right? And then from there, we start breaking down. So really putting a priority list of your non-negotiables, and then everything else at the bottom that is like a not so much of a priority, then we can play around with that. Did that answer your
Yeah, yeah. No, and now let's say we're in a person, or let's say a family is tight on, I mean, they're like, I got $5 left at the end of the month. Do you start to chip away and see these are things we can cut out first? Is that normally the approach when someone is just like, we have nothing, we can't have money to go anywhere?
So if we've already done like an analysis and they for sure know like this is all we have left, then we start saying, okay, where else? Like either revisit it if it doesn't feel like, if I ask them, I say, and that's something that they have to be honest with themselves. And sometimes they're not ready to give up certain things. So that's where I said, okay, I'm just going to ask you one more time, like, where are your priorities? And they're like, I don't want to give up, my gym membership, or, I don't want to do workouts at home. And I say, okay, then that's your priority. That's what you value. Or some people just don't want to give up something because they worked so hard for it, but they don't even care to have it. I'm like, okay, why do you have this expensive camera that you thought you were going to be doing photography? Sell that equipment.
Yeah.
You know how much that's going to give you? You haven't used it. It's collecting dust in there. There's things that we can start letting go of. Go check your garage, check your closet. What are valuables in there that you can get rid of that are going to help you start growing that money bucket?
Because that's another like emotional tie, right? Like you're asking people to essentially get rid of stuff that they have connected to in some sort of way, even if they don't use it. Because there's like, when people have like cars from, family members that have passed away, and they're like, I want to hold on to this car. Like, you don't drive it, or there's stuff in the house or sitting in the garage, or where, I remember when my mother was moving, we had my uncle had passed away, and there was a lot of stuff that belonged to him. And I remember going into the house, and I was like, this isn't, it's stuff that you can get rid of. But I think a lot of family members didn't want to do it because we're like, oh, it reminds us of him. But I'm like, it's not really, it's a box of X, and there's nothing in there that's really important. So I think that emotional tie to it is such a big deal. And I think it comes from, this is just my speculation, because I've seen it working on the business side with a lot of different underserved, minority-owned businesses, that I think part of gaining stuff starts to make you feel like you're achieving things, especially in the United States. Like, I'm first generation as well. When people come over here, I think especially with the Hispanic, Asian, and Black communities, you look at, I've got a business and I'm now buying things I don't really need, but it's making me feel like I'm growing in assets, right? And a lot of times those assets don't really mean anything. They're just stuff, Why do you need 3 cars? You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't need it. Do you think that there is a lot of mental and emotional things you have to break through culturally in order to get them to at least start to get where you need to be?
100%. 100%. I've been like telling people more, I'm a cycle breaker, because I realize there's so many cycles I've been breaking. And there's some of us, first generation, that we start realizing, man, there's a lot of cycles I need to break, or I've been breaking. The first cycle I broke in my family was, I'm going to talk about money. We didn't really talk about money. And now people I'm the money lady.
It's like, oh, here she comes. Get away from her. She's going to talk about money again.
I'm the money lady, and seeing how uncomfortable it makes my grandma talk about money.
Yeah.
And just realizing her energy changes when we talk about money. My other grandma, same thing. What's her perspective on money? And yes, there is 100% generational things that we have to kind of look back at, and patterns and roots that are within us. And sometimes that's why we don't know, I'm holding on to that because my grandma wanted to hold on to everything that she bought, when she first came here. And so we have that emotional tie, and realizing it's not even my emotional tie, really. It was just what family members were saying, oh, it's emotional. But do I really care about this box of things? So there's definitely, yes, there is a lot of cycles that we have to go back in and look at, and be honest and truthful with people in a empathetic way, of saying, do you see the pattern? Helping them see the pattern so that they can be the ones to decide, okay, I'm gonna let go of this, or I have awareness of this is a cycle that I want to break, and empowering them to start taking action, to start looking at it, to just even have the awareness when it's in your mind now of, okay, I'm going to make a change now, and I'm going to start noticing how I feel when it comes to money. When I talk about money, how do I feel? Where do I feel it in my body? Do I feel anxiety? Do I feel scared? Do I get angry? Because some people have anger when it comes to money. So identifying where you are at personally when it comes to money, what do you feel when you talk about money? What's the first thing that comes up when you talk about money?
And we've been talking more on this I guess the everyday personal side, right? But now when it comes to business owners, what do you find? Do you find the same patterns in business owners when it comes to money, that they don't want to discuss it, that they're afraid to look at what's really happening on the financial reports, P&Ls, what's going on day to day, because they have to try to keep the business afloat? Is that something you see the same way?
Yes, with business owners, it's similar. I think that they do have some of those, generational patterns that they're not aware of. And sometimes it's a little bit easier when it comes to a business owner, because they're like, I'm at the point where I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep my business going. So they're more willing to try to make a change, or really just take a new strategy, see what's working, what's not working. All right, let's redo it again. Depending on where they're at, with their business. And sometimes they are afraid to look at their financials. They don't want to look at it because they know that they're overspending in, having that partnership with that person, delivering them all their supplies, but because they've had this friendship, but yet they can find a better rate somewhere else.
Yeah.
So then I ask them, why do you keep working with them? Why are you still using their delivery services? Let's look at somebody else. They're like, no, and it's this loyalty thing that they have to them.
Once again, going back to emotion, right? We're trying to tie, I don't want to feel bad. I don't want to make them feel bad.
Exactly.
So it just keeps going in this cycle. I think it's interesting because I felt that the older I've gotten, the less emotion I have attached to money. It's based on financial decisions, right? Is it going to be good? Is it going to bring in more money, or am I going to lose money? And I just look at it as numbers. And I think that's one of the hardest things for people to do, because we've been, I don't know, we're so tied into how much joy and pain money can bring us. And I think it takes such a long process to study that, read on things, listen to podcasts, watch people on YouTube. I've spent the past 5 years doing that, and I felt like it's made me see it in a different light. What are some of your um, things that you should tell people to go look and see? They should read this. They should look at this to help them on an everyday, schedule.
Um, there's definitely a lot of books out there, right? And podcasts and YouTube videos. I think if you're first just starting to really have this internal conversation with yourself about where you are with your money and your finances, start just looking up at a podcast, looking up audible books that talk about money, your relationship with money, the psychology of money, and start exploring different, because there's so many like creatives out there and authors that really just give so much valuable information, and whoever resonates with you. For me, it was somebody from Mexico actually that was just bluntly talking about money and how we are like Mexicans like don't know how to manage their money. We don't know how to prioritize. We like to overspend. And she was just very like truthful and raw and kind of harsh. But that was for me, that's where I was like, I need to start following her and her work, because I resonated with what she was saying. And from there, it just starts opening up. The algorithm will start working in your favor. It'll start sending suggestions. And then from there, you're going to start to be able to, now feel empowered to start making your own choices. It can be overwhelming, but it takes time. It takes time. You're breaking patterns. You're figuring out your relationship with money. And now you're trying to okay, now I know what my emotions are with it. Let me put them aside and let me really look at the numbers. Does it make sense? Is it going to help me grow? Is it not? Okay, that's not for me. And then move on to the next one. Now that you know your emotion, and sometimes now that you're aware of what emotional patterns you have, now you can bring it into the table and say, okay, why is everybody advising me to do this, but why doesn't it feel good for me?
Yeah.
What is it that's holding me back? Or why do I want to jump to the first thing that somebody tells me? Like, just take that moment to have that conversation with yourself.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people tend to jump at the first thing that they hear, and you're just like, just do a little bit more. Let some more things soak in, because that's one person's perspective of what money is to them and how they manage it. Because it's interesting, because I've listened, like, what you're saying, different podcasts and YouTube, read books, and you will see people value debt differently, right? So people that want good debt, they're like, this is good debt. And some people are like, you should never have debt. And you're like, how can two people be so successful in whatever they're doing, have such a different point of view on the spectrum of how money is? But I think it also goes into part of risk and experience, right? What you're willing to do with that money. I think some people who have invested into real estate and like, I'm willing to invest a lot of money, do big risk, and it has paid off. But then I've met those same people who have gone into real estate and we're like, I invested a lot of money and nothing's paid off, right? So it's different. I wanted to kind of get to some stats so that I think people can relate and understand what's going on with the United States currently, right? So one of the things that you had brought up to me was there were over 60% of U.S. adults live paycheck to paycheck, right? Which kind of is interesting, because the federal minimum wage in the United States is $7.25. It's been that way since 2009, which is crazy, and it can vary by states. But to think that that hasn't even come close to what it costs to live in the United States. When someone comes to you and they're like, I make $8 an hour, right? What is the approach with them? Or should they be looking at a second job? Should they try to get out of that job and upgrade into something that pays more? Or should they start to have, well, let's look at what you're spending it on and go backwards and then start to, or is it all of it?
It's all of it. Yeah. It's all of it. It's like, how long have you been at this job? When's the last time you got a raise? What else? What other skills do you have? What other, can you apply for a promotion? Does your job give bonuses? Why aren't you qualifying for bonuses? Just kind of seeing really like where they're at, because sometimes they're like, I just don't make enough money. And I'm like, okay, well,
And they sit there and not do
and they
anything,
sit
right?
there and not do anything because they just feel so overwhelmed. Um, so for somebody that is in that situation, is saying, yeah, have you applied for other jobs? What other jobs are you applying for? How much are they going to pay you? You know, can you get a second job? Can you afford? What other skills do you have that you can start doing on the side? Can you go walk dogs? Can you create graphic designs? I don't know, whatever.
Drive Uber.
Drive
Yeah.
Uber, exactly. You know, at one point I had 3 jobs. It sucked, but I knew that it was temporary, and I knew that I was trying to pay off my debt in like record time, and I was willing to do that. And I also had the capability of doing that. I didn't have all these other responsibilities, family responsibilities. So it allowed me, and I had a conversation with myself, and I said, I'm gonna do these 3 jobs for 6 months, just 6 months. That's all I'm giving me. And every check, it's going away to paying off my debt. Every check. So really having those conversations with people, what else can you do to bring in more income? What else can you do on the side? Nowadays, people are making money from home, you know,
Yeah.
just recording videos.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many ways to make money nowadays,
Yeah.
but people have to be willing to put in the work and do it and just start.
I think that's the toughest part, right? Like trying to have a mindset of I'm going to have to achieve and work more than what I'm doing now, going from a 9 to 5, getting X amount of dollars, and it's temporary. And the temporary, I think for a lot of people, I always feel like that's what scares people away, right? It could be this temporary might be for 2 years, and 2 years seems like a long time, but 15 years of debt is even longer, and that's a stressful month to month. You know, it's I think one of the things that, you know, I remember when I was in my 20s and came out of college, I was offered like 3 different credit cards from different banks, and I was like, this is amazing. And I went out and spent money, got into heavy debt, and I was looking back at it and I was like, that is the craziest few years of anyone's life. So you're coming out of high school, you're now getting into a massive loan with a college. And then right out of college, you're like, oh, you want more debt? We're going to give you a credit card. And you get more, and you're like, oh, I can now spend whatever I want. And there's no one really to regulate that. You know, and I know I've spoken to families, and I feel like parents are starting to get better at it. But when I was growing up, it was just like, you know, no one knew. Literally, none of my friends understood. I don't think we've had one conversation on investing, debt, or use of money. It was just like, if we're going to go out, we're going to do it. And then I remember going out on the weekends, and I had friends that would spend like hundreds of dollars on drinks. You know, and I remember thinking there was one point I was like, that doesn't quite make sense to me. Like whatever is happening right now, so I need to adjust something. And there was I had a client who was a personal trainer when I was coming out of college, and I asked him, I was about to be 22 years old, and I asked him, what advice would you give to someone my age? And I think he was in his late 30s at the time, and he was doing well with money, and he was like, go buy property. Take all your money, saving it, just buy anything. It could be a condo, could be a small little property, and just figure it out from there, and at least you're ready to put your foot in. I did not do that, and I went to travel to Thailand and spent a lot of money. And I was like, why didn't I listen? Right? Someone, literally, I asked a question. Someone that was successful told me, and I was like, I'm going to do something different. And I think about that moment a lot, because if I would have done that, I think my life would have been financially dramatically different, because I probably would have been heavy into real estate investing, or put that money towards something else that can grow, because I didn't start to learn. I mean, I'm learning all this stuff now, you know, late in the game, but it's still possible to do that. Now, you had also brought up that there were 3 pillars that you feel like people should stick to, right? It was protection, growth, and freedom. Could you explain those more?
Protection. So protection on your income. So imagine you have a printing machine at home. Prints money every day. Every day it prints money. Are you going to buy the warranty or the insurance on it in case it breaks down? Yes or no? Most people are going to be like, heck yeah, I'm going to, if it's printing me money every day, I'm going to buy the insurance on it. Well, why aren't you buying the insurance on you? You're the money maker. You're the machine at your house that's printing the money. You're the one paying the bills. Why isn't your income protected? So having that protection of, am I protecting my income in case something happens to me? I get a chronic illness. State's only going to give me X amount of dollars. They're not going to cover all of my expenses if I even qualify for that. Social Security is not going to give me enough money. It's probably going to expire at this point. Having those thoughts and knowing that you need to protect your money in case something happens for the long run. How is your family going to be protected when you're no longer here? Because things happen all the time, and the more I work with families and in finances, I see it. Oh, I should have bought the life insurance. Or I see it, they call me and they're like, can I buy it now? And I said, we can try, but it's probably going to be too late. I'm going to do everything I can. But we had this conversation 2 years ago, and we didn't do anything. And now you're calling me, and it might be a little too late. Why? Because now you were diagnosed with a chronic illness or a terminal illness, and insurance companies aren't going to want to cover anybody. There's other alternatives that we can still try to help people with, but at that point, it's a little too late. Personally, when I first started learning about life insurances and how they work and the different types of life insurances, and that it's another way of protecting your money, not just, I used to think, oh, it's only for wealthy people or it's for when I die.
Yeah.
I didn't know. That's all I knew about life insurance. And then I started educating myself on what is life insurance? Why is there life insurance? Why don't they make us buy life insurance? They make us buy auto insurance, and you probably have insurance on your cell phone. But what about life insurance on yourself? So having those conversations, and then when I told my mom, we need to get you this. We need to all get this. 3 months later, my mom was diagnosed with a chronic illness, and I was able to use her living benefits with it. And that, just having the first notice of your mom has cancer, and then the next thing that came to my mind was, how am I going to pay for it? Like, how am I going to pay for it? And then I remembered, oh, she has a life insurance policy with living benefits. And my shoulders just dropped. Like, I was like, I think I'm okay. Like, that there was a little bit more peace of mind. And Mom, what do you need? Do you need, medication? Do you need this and that? Are we traveling somewhere to get a second opinion? I had that. I had that option to have there.
Okay. And what about the growth part?
The growth part, how is your money growing? Where are you investing your money? Do you have a high yield savings account, or is it a regular account where you're getting 0% interest on your money? The different types of accounts that can make your money grow. Which ones are more safe? Are you in the stock market? Are you risking everything? Are you investing in other options? So that is the growth.
And what about the freedom?
The freedom. Now that your money is protected and it's growing, now you have the freedom to choose what you want to do with your money. Do I want to pull out from my investment to go open up a business? Do I want to just go travel? Do I want to buy the car now? Do I want to put a down payment on a home or a second home? Now you have the freedom to do that, and you have the peace of mind that your money is protected. So I think those are the 3 pillars to help, not just with the numbers, but also internally with that peace of mind and that emotional fulfillment.
Nice, great. Now, if there's someone that is interested to get into the finance world and helping people in that, whether it be for personal or business, what is your advice to them as they're starting out?
Where is your personal relationship with money first? I believe that true leadership comes when you can be an example for others. And we all have different stories and different backgrounds. But have you done the work for yourself? How can you go and help somebody when you haven't fixed your finances, your relationship with money? Are you in a good place? Are you ready to start helping people and guiding people? Have you done some of the work, to get to now to be like, I want to help people too? For me, it was I needed to help myself first. And then I started realizing I want to help I'm a natural helper. So where are you with your finances, and what direction do you want to help people in? Where is it with debt management? Is it with the psychological part of money? Do you want to help actually people invest? Are you educating people? And I think right now we are in a time where education is crucial. It's super important. People make better choices when they have clarity. And when they're clear on something, they're more confident in doing it. Versus when they're like, oh, I don't know what that is, or I've heard about it, but I haven't done the research on it.
Yeah, I think research is really, I've learned from my own personal experience how important research into something is. And it's not just reading an article or listening to one podcast. It's literally diving into something for months on end so that you understand so many different aspects of what someone or multiple people are talking about. And then finding, I like to do this on my end too, is go look at the other side of it, right? If someone's like, this is how you should do this, and you go, I want to hear the other side of it and how that's worked, right? And see which one connects to me emotionally, and two, what makes sense for me financially as a person for what I want to do for my future goals. Well, great. And where can people find you?
People can find me. I'm not really big on social media, but I am starting to get back on social media. I'm on LinkedIn and I am on Instagram. My Instagram is Riqueza con Andrea. Right now, I am very, very focused on helping the Latino community. So you can find me on there. And those are my two socials that I have currently right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrea. And this is The Personal Side of Business.
Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Thank you. Awesome. Awesome. Love it.